The Jeep Wrangler is a true American icon with production spanning many decades. The Wrangler is the go-to option for many off-road enthusiasts, mainly because this model simply delivers and goes where other SUVs stop. But with the introduction of the Bronco, buyers are getting more and more cautious about where they spend their money, and for some reason, avoid the Jeep Wrangler. So if you want to learn why, stay with us while we cover the 7 shocking reasons why the new Jeep Wrangler is not selling. Number 7. Platform is getting dated. One of the biggest reasons why the Jeep Wrangler is not selling is the outdated platform. Believe it or not, that's the case with the current Jeep Wrangler. This model has an outdated platform. For those who don't know, the platform is the core of every vehicle. In this case, the Jeep Wrangler is based on a body-on-frame platform. So what does this mean? Well, this means that there's a rectangle frame beneath the body of this SUV. This frame has been in production since 2017. In car years, that's a lot of time. During this time frame, a brand new model should have been released. But what Jeep does is keep producing the JL. This model is good, but not as good for 2024. It lacks a proper modern suspension, modern transfer cases, and modern technologies, such as electrification. Overall, this makes the Bronco a more attractive option compared to the Jeep Wrangler because this model was released a few years back and is far newer compared to the Jeep Wrangler. In order for the Wrangler to be on the Bronco level, it has to gain a few inches in size and offer a more comfortable and enjoyable drive. This is why we hope that this will be the case and Jeep will listen to its customers and offer a brand new generation of the Wrangler for the 2025 model year. But only time will tell whether or not this will happen. Number 6. No high output engine. Another big downside of the Jeep Wrangler is the lack of a high output engine. The Wrangler simply does not have a lot to offer to the table when compared to the Bronco. Currently, the Jeep Wrangler comes with 3 different engines. These include the 3.6-liter V6 Pentastar, the 2.0-liter inline-4 turbo Hurricane engine, and the 6.4-liter Hemi. From these 3, only the 2.0-liter Hurricane can be considered as a new engine with new technologies. The other 2 engines are pretty outdated, especially the 6.4-liter Hemi. Don't get us wrong, the Hemi is a great engine, but it simply does not have the torque needed when it comes to off-roading. These days, only a turbo engine can be a proper high-output engine that will deliver instant torque to the wheels. And the lack of a high-output turbo engine is a problem for many owners. Just for contrast, the Ford Bronco only comes with turbo engines. The most potent being the Bronco Raptor with a 3.0-liter V6 engine that pushes up to 418 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque. Most importantly, this incredible torque is available relatively low on the RPM band, making it almost instant. The Hemi version of the Wrangler delivers up to 470 pound-feet of torque. But this torque is not there when you need it when off-roading. It takes time for the engine to build up momentum, and this can be frustrating for many owners. So what we hope for is that Jeep will introduce the 3.0-liter Hurricane engine for the Wrangler. And the high output version, this engine produces up to 540 HP and 520 pound-feet of torque. And this is a massive performance when the power hits instantly when you push the throttle. This engine would be a true replacement for the Hemi 392 and even surpass it in many aspects. This is why we expect that Jeep will introduce this engine for the 2025 model year of the Jeep Wrangler. Number 5. No EV version. Another downside of the Jeep Wrangler, and a major reason why this model is not selling, is the lack of an EV version. The Jeep Wrangler already comes with a hybrid powertrain, but it lacks a proper electric version, and this makes many of the customers who want an EV pretty unsatisfied. For example, Mercedes has already started to include an EV model for its G-Class. Reportedly, Ford also plans to add an EV Bronco. So Jeep needs to react quickly and introduce its own EV version of this model. Although many hate EVs, these models are extremely popular in California, for example. Buyers over there are craving these new energy vehicles, and Jeep would be foolish not to bank hard on this. Since Stellantis, the owner of Jeep, has the powertrain and battery technology, they can develop an EV model rather quickly. The only downside of such a model will definitely be the price. These models tend to cost an arm and a leg, so if you want one, you should be prepared to pay a ton of money to buy one. When it comes to the expectations of this model, we expect it to implement a dual motor setup and a battery of at least 100 kilowatt hours. This would give this model a sub 3-second acceleration and a range of about 250 miles. In off-road conditions, this efficiency could drop significantly because of the stress that is put on the battery. But overall, this model will be a great choice for the EV fans out there. Number 4. Limited towing capability and lack of cargo and cabin space. Another downside of the Jeep Wrangler is definitely its limited towing capability and lack of cargo space to store items. The base Jeep Wrangler can only tow up to 2,000 pounds, and this is a shame because the upper trim levels have a towing capacity of up to 5,000 pounds. So considering how much you pay for this model, having a good baseline towing capacity is mandatory. That's why we hope that Jeep will add more towing capacity in the entry-level models in order to make them more appealing. The second downside when it comes to its practicality is the lack of cargo space. This model does not have some of the largest cargo rooms inside. The 2-door version is especially poor in this area, and the 4-door is not a lot better. This problem, unfortunately, is not easily solvable. So if you need a more practical off-road SUV, you should definitely look at the Toyota 4Runner or the Land Cruiser. Besides the cargo space, driver comfort is also pretty poor. The cabin is very narrow, and the seats are not one of the best that you can find. Number 3. Poor fuel economy and road noise. A big pitfall of the Jeep Wrangler is definitely the fuel economy aspect. The Wrangler is not one of the best vehicles to purchase for fuel economy. Why is this the case? Well, there are a few reasons behind this, but most notable are the design choices and tires that this model has. The Jeep Wrangler is a boxy SUV that is basically built like a box. It's not very aerodynamic. This creates a ton of resistance, and the Wrangler simply does not glide through the air as some of the competitors. The second reason why this is the case is because of its large tires. This is an off-road SUV, and it implements big meaty tires that are very large and have big treads. All this doesn't help the Jeep Wrangler when it comes to fuel economy, and this model only gets up to 19 to 22 miles per gallon combined, depending on the model. The thirstiest model is the 6.4-liter Hemi. This model only gets up to 14 miles per gallon combined. This makes it one of the worst models that you can get in terms of fuel consumption. When it comes to its poor aerodynamics and large tires, it is also worth it to note the road nose that is created when you drive this model. Driving the Jeep Wrangler on the highway is not one of the best experiences that you can have. The noise that is created is on the same level or even worse than the one of a classic car. So if this plays a vital role, you should definitely go elsewhere and get something sleeker and more modern. Number 2. Poor steering quality. Another downside of the Jeep Wrangler and its huge tires is the way that this model steers. Many of the owners have described its steering as loose or vague. This is a very common thing when it comes to off-road vehicles. The tires are huge and do not allow handling like the one you have in some other vehicles that have normal tires. The best way to combat this problem is to add standard summer tires. These tires will make the handling far better, but the downside with these tires is the poor off-road performance. Number 1. It is expensive. One big downside of the Jeep Wrangler is definitely its price. Its starting price is good, starting at $31,995. But what you get for this price is pretty mediocre. For this money, you only get a 2-door version with the base engine, no options, and poor towing performance of only 2,000 pounds. And we honestly think that for this amount of money, this is a pretty poor offering. In order to get the Wrangler you want, you'll have to spend $40,000 or more, something that not everyone can do these days. So overall, considering the age of this model and its usability, we think that Jeep should offer more for less in order to be competitive.